And this is what I tell my clients too, when they think about like being an imposter or feeling judgment or, whatever. I ask them to think about when they're in like the middle of their craft, whatever that craft is, whether they're a photographer or a podcaster or a balloon installation artist, whatever it is. Think about when you're in the middle of it and you're doing it, you're doing the thing. Are you thinking about how people are going to judge you? Are you thinking about if someone thinks you're snake oil or not, right? So for me, it's like in the middle of coaching someone, am I thinking this is snake oil? I'm not. And the reason why it's not is because my coaching isn't about me. It's about my client. It's all about my client.
You're listening to The Creative Imposter, episode number 51. Welcome to The Creative Imposter. I'm your host, Andrea Klunder, and today we are talking with Nikki Ricks of Gab Lab. What on earth is Gab Lab? I'm going to read it to you right from her website. At Gab Lab, we are builders of creative empires, of bridges to your business's next big break, of connections and confidence, of the next wave of kick-ass female entrepreneurs and the businesses they're working overtime to create. We believe in the power of face-to-face chats, the magic of technology, the joy of being comfortable in your skin, and the importance of showing up every damn day. We know whatever you're building and whatever stage your business is in, it's special AF, and that is why we're here to lend you tools, resources, tissues, coffee, and high fives whenever you need it. Let us inspire, empower, and help you navigate your business into its bright future like a warrior. We know you're really freaking good at what you do. We're really freaking good at what we do too, and that's why, together, we're going to take over the world. Pinky promise. And that sums up so perfectly Nikki's personality and her approach to business coaching. So, yep, once again, we are in the theme this month of coaching and what on earth coaching has to do with imposter syndrome and how working with a coach might be the next step for you in moving your creative work forward. I'm going to be honest, this particular conversation really felt less like an interview and more like Nikki and I were just getting on the phone to hang out and chat, kind of like how I used to do with my friends in high school, before the internet. And that's what I love most about Nikki. She is all about community and connections and matchmaking creative women in our businesses. All of the resources that we mention, as well as contact information for Nikki, including her Crafting Your Creative Business Plan e-course, are available in the show notes for today's episode at thecreativeimposter.com/051. And now I'm going to let you eavesdrop on my creative business girl talk with Nikki Ricks of Gab Lab. Yeah, it's been fun getting to know you over the past few weeks ever since we met at the Creative Women's Co. event. I don't know if we didn't meet at the event, right? We just saw each other from afar.
Yeah. After you introduced yourself, I just got all googly-eyed and then emailed you afterwards.
Which I really appreciate because when other people are better at follow-up and networking than me, it really helps me out too.
Totally. I know. I hear that. Well, and I feel like I really know you because I just did a trip to Costa Rica and just did a huge deep dive on all of your podcasts. And so I know a lot about you.
That's kind of one of the fun things about podcasts is that you develop these intimate relationships with the people that you listen to, even if you've never met them in real life. It's like, oh, I already know you on a deep soul level or something.
Well, how do you feel about that? Because you don't know. I mean, I know that you said that you researched me, my website and my social and stuff, but you don't know me like I know you.
It's true.
It's like an unrequited love.
I mean, well, and what's cool is then getting to meet somebody who has listened to your show because When you're recording these episodes, it feels a little not personal, like in a sharing all my secrets kind of way, but it's pretty candid. And you record it in a closet or a kitchen pantry or, with a blanket over your head to minimize echo. And you're just talking to yourself, basically. You don't really know always who is listening. So it's affirming to meet people who have listened and then to know that they've resonated with what you say. And then to see that you, Nikki, are an example of the exact type of person that I would want to listen to my show.
Oh, that is so nice. Yeah, no, I feel similar. Like on my Insta stories, I just don't care about my Insta stories. Like my Instagram, I'm a little bit more thoughtful with what I post, but my Insta stories, I like dance on. I'm like just a freak, And when people are like, oh, I watch your Insta stories, there's like a level of, oh, okay. So that I'm like ridiculous, So it's just like, we've covered this ground now that I'm crazy. And so that about me already, So I feel like.
Then we've already established a certain kind of rapport at that point.
Totally. Yeah. Like you're okay with this. We're both okay here.
Exactly. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you do and what you are most excited about in your life and work right now.
Yeah, so I am a business coach for creative women entrepreneurs. My business is called Gab Lab, and I put on events. I am starting to roll out some e-courses, and I work with women one-on-one. And what I'm excited about right now, well, I know this is like time sensitive, so, it may be in the past, but I'm putting on a retreat at the end of September up at Camp Onawega. And it's just always so great to have that connection, that face-to-face connection with people and business women talking real talk with each other and not like social media talk. And so I'm really excited to have that full weekend of eating and campfire and trees and meditation and workshops and the love and the good vibes and all of that.
When I was cyber stalking you and looking at your website, and my disclaimer here is that I know a lot of coaches. I sometimes feel like everyone is a coach. And
yes.
So looking at, okay, well, what differentiates this coach from this coach from this coach, and what makes this person special? And one thing that I observed when I was looking at your website, which is gorgeous, I totally have website envy.
Oh, thank you.
Is a very strong emphasis on community building and connection and social interaction. What is it about community that you think is really important on the creative business journey?
Yeah, so much. I think so much is important to it. So I just read this Steve Jobs quote that I'm going to botch because I never say quotes correctly.
Me either. Don't worry.
He says something about how like you are better with other people. Every idea will be better the more people you bring onto it. And so I know that I'm better when I collaborate, when I have more heads on something to brainstorm it out with someone. They're going to have an insight because of their background, because of their experience, because of their interest level, whatever it is. You're just better as far as collaboration. I also think that the business world, this is where I get all like feminist, take down the patriarchy. I feel like the business world has been taken over by like white men, right? And it's just this like patriarchy. And men are like stereotypically testosterone driven and competition and dog eat dog world. And women aren't like that. The way that women run things is very democratic and collaborative. And so I think that women in the past have gone into business thinking that they've had to adopt the same mindset and framework that is set there and is still very much there of competition and go and beat your competitor and be better. And I've seen women try to adopt that mindset and it's just not natural. I mean, I'm not going to group all women and say like all women feel this way. I've definitely met women where that mindset works for them. But the majority of women that I've worked with, that I've met with, it doesn't. And women don't want to even view each other that way. And they don't want to work with one another that way. And even if two women have the same exact product, it's going to be different naturally, intrinsically, just because of who they are. They're going to sell it differently. It's going to look differently. It's going to be different just because there's two different individuals. And so why not take both of your powers and both of your experience and strengths and magnify that by collaborating?
I think that is one huge, I don't want to say mistake, but one huge learning that I had from the first business that I opened, the yoga studio and spa that I had for 5 years. I was trying to create community amongst my clients and the people coming to the classes. And of course, I had other people teaching and providing services and things like that within the studio, but I really tried to do a lot of stuff by myself. And I really did not take the time to develop strong relationships with colleagues.
So why didn't you do that? Did you feel like you were stepping on their toes, or what do you think prevented you, where you had that mindset of competition over collaboration?
Yeah, well, I think that for one thing, I just was overwhelmed with all the things that I felt like I needed to do as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, doing it for the first time. It's like, you know, I was trying to learn finance and bookkeeping for the first time. I was trying to figure out QuickBooks. I was trying to navigate having a commercial facility that I'm dealing with, and when the water heater breaks, what happens, and marketing, and having a website, and managing what happens when your yoga teachers can't come to class at the last minute, and you know, like all these things, and database administration. To use that as a very specific example, sometimes people think, oh, well, I love teaching yoga, so why wouldn't I open my own yoga studio where I can kind of do things the way that I want to and teach yoga all the time? It's like, oh, you don't even have time to teach yoga anymore after that because you're dealing with all this other stuff. I would feel like, oh, I should be networking. But then at the end of the day, the idea of going out, meeting strangers and talking to people, it sounded like, oh, it's just another thing that I have to like find the time and energy to do. And I think that sometimes when I would go to events that I felt like I should be going to, it wasn't always the right mix of people. Whereas what I love about what you're creating is that it feels much more aligned. It's almost like you're cultivating these events that are going to call people who are in a similar mindset.
Well, and to build off what we were saying, the fitness world in and of itself is very competitive. And so maybe that's also what you were feeling. Just the industry itself is just innately like a competitive industry.
And I did notice some business owners are very generous with their expertise, and they're very open to sharing insights and ideas with you. And some are very protective, like it's some kind of trade secret or whatever. And so there's definitely a difference in mindset between a scarcity mentality where we need to be in competition with each other versus that abundance mindset where it's like, sure, I can tell you everything that I've learned, and that doesn't jeopardize my potential for success. And I think that comes back to, you know, what you and I have talked about a little bit before that I'd love to hear some more about, is that you didn't start out as a coach per se, but you started out as a business consultant. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about that journey and the difference between being a consultant and a coach and why you shifted.
Yeah. When I first started out, I was just running my own businesses, and I came from the co-working worlds, which talk about an industry that's super open and very willing to give you any and all trade secrets. Co-working is so open and welcoming and wonderful. So I was in that world with a business, and I just realized how much I loved working with women. And I thought that when I first initially started working with women, I called myself a strategy consultant because I had learned a lot about marketing and about working with clients and growing and building a business. And I saw, just these simple things that women weren't doing. And so I thought, hey, I'll start doing strategy consulting and helping them out. And I quickly started learning from doing that is that that's just more technical, and that running a business, it's almost like athletics, where it's 90% mental and 10% technical. And so some business owners are like paralyzed by sending out a newsletter. So it's not the technical part of it is like, okay, you use MailChimp. Are you going to do an automated email sales funnel? Or, are you going to send this out monthly? Are they going to be weekly? Whatever. That's all the technical side of it. So that's the 10% part of it. But the 90% is, what are people going to think of me? And is this content valuable enough? And does it look good enough? And, all this mental side of running your business where you psych yourself out and you need a sounding board or you need validation or whatever it may be. And so that's where I realized that the coaching end of it was much more valuable and also lasting than the technical side, the consulting side of it. And also where I felt like a really high vibe connection with my clients. Like I'm constantly thinking about my clients and I'm constantly thinking about like, oh, this person should connect with this person. And oh, I'm going to email this person about this. And so it just very quickly became like a natural step for me, even though it was really hard for me to go from consultant to coach, just because exactly what you just said, coaches are like a dime a dozen, and like what makes me different than another coach. And I didn't want to be snake oil. My worst nightmare is someone going through my program and then at the end saying that was like snake oil. Mm-hmm. And so that's also why I thought like, well, I'll do this technical side of it. Mm-hmm. And then they'll have this black and white, hard and fast result. Mm-hmm. But I realized that the bigger results are coming from the coaching, not from the consulting.
I'm so glad you said that about email because I'm someone who struggles to have a consistent email newsletter. And when I actually open ConvertKit and create the email from the template, it takes me all of like 10 minutes. It's not that big a deal. And there's the logical part of my brain that says, okay, so somebody doesn't open your email and they don't click the links. Okay, big deal. And, somebody decides, that's one too many emails from Andrea, unsubscribe, like whatever. Mm-hmm. But then I'm like, what is that resistance? Why can I not send out a consistent email? I know how. It doesn't take that long. It's not that hard. I logically understand that it's not a big deal. I clearly know I'm not sending out too many emails because it's been like 3 weeks since I've sent anything, So it's like, what is that mindset shift that needs to happen that makes email? Ooh, I'm excited to reach out to my followers, like who have signed up for this list to hear from me.
Yeah. So what is it?
I don't know. I'm asking you.
No, but this is the thing. Like, I can't give you it. It has to come from you. You're the only one who knows. So, I mean, we could take the time to like try to uncover it right now. Do you want to?
No, not right now. I need to pay you for a session for that because it could take all day.
I don't care.
No, it could take all day to unpack my aversion to email. Believe me. Well,
I mean, based on the little that you did say about it, you were talking about fears of people not valuing it, right? Because you were talking about someone like, oh, she's sending it too much, or no one's clicking on the links, or people unsubscribing, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I'm hearing based on, and maybe we don't have to talk about this a lot, but just based on the little that you said, what I'm hearing from you is that it's fear based on you not giving enough value.
Yeah, that actually is a very interesting way to put it because kind of like your snake oil example with your coaching, if I'm putting out work and I'm thoughtful about it and I'm putting this effort in and somebody doesn't value it and somebody's like, oh, this is trash. Oh, this is a waste of my time. Like, that's like a knife in my chest.
Totally.
And it goes into the whole idea of imposter syndrome, right? If I'm putting out this thing and I'm trying to be authentic, but then somebody's not valuing what I have to give, then if I say, oh, I'm this really cool podcaster, but somebody's not listening to my episodes or somebody's unsubscribing from my show or deleting the episodes and saying like, why did I subscribe to this show anyways? Then it does sort of like speak to feeling like a fraud.
Yeah. It's like the uncovering like peeking behind the curtain or whatever.
So how does imposter syndrome come up for you? You were talking a little bit about making that shift from consultant to coach and that feeling of like, oh, what if somebody goes through my program and then they feel like they didn't get any value out of it? How did you work through that?
Yeah, well, first it was just logistically, when people would refer to me or introduce me, they would say, "This is my coach." So I didn't even call myself a coach, but they would start introducing me as their coach because that's how they felt about me. They didn't feel like I was their consultant. They felt like I was their coach. So it's just like I was just had to listen to, what the feedback that I was getting from my clients and how I was being introduced and how people thought about me. And this is what I tell my clients too, when they think about like being an imposter or feeling judgment or, whatever. I ask them to think about when they're in like the middle of their craft, whatever that craft is, whether they're a photographer or a podcaster or a balloon installation artist, whatever it is. Think about when you're in the middle of it and you're doing it. You're doing the thing. Are you thinking about how people are going to judge you? Are you thinking about if someone thinks you're snake oil or not? Right. So for me, it's like in the middle of coaching someone, am I thinking this is snake oil? I'm not. And the reason why it's not is because my coaching isn't about me. It's about my client. It's all about my client. And in fact, something that I've adopted is I read this book about sales and I hated it. But the one thing that I loved about it was one part of the book said, like, do not lie. It's like, no shit. Like, what are you talking about? Do not lie. Like, it was like terrible. I'm like, who are you talking to? Do not lie, But anyway, one of the things they broke it down and it was like 70% of sales should be your client or your potential customer talking. So 70% listening, 20% you asking them questions. So just prompting them to talk more. And then 10% should be you actually selling the thing or explaining what the product is or whatever it is. And so that's what I've adopted in all of my practice as far as like giving content and it being about someone else. But even with my clients, when I'm doing coaching sessions, the 10% is more just like me giving them feedback based on what I'm hearing from them and acting as a sounding board, so it's still about them. So I guess that's how I deal with, is this snake oil or not? And I don't think that it's snake oil because of one, how I feel in the middle of it, and how I feel like the person I'm meeting with is feeling. And then two, looking at that ratio of the conversations. Because sometimes the feeling, that's the more of the qualitative side of it, which is hard to really measure. So I look at it, the quantitative side of it. So the quantitative is that 70, 20, 10%.
I think you just solved my email problem.
Oh, yeah, totally. Well, yeah, no, that's what that's what I tell clients. Like when we're talking about newsletter or social media or anything, I hate this guy, but I shouldn't say hate. Well, no, I just dislike him strongly. The guy who wrote the book, Jab, 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 Right Hook or whatever.
Yeah. Is that Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yes. Yeah. So he has like some good things to say sometimes, but like one of the things that he talks about is give, give, give. Like you're giving content, give, give, give. And then you have an ask, right? So like 75% of your content should be giving all the stuff away. Just give yourself. And then the 25% should be, and here are my services. Whatever your ask is, whether you're selling something, a service or a product or whatever it may be.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking like, that's how I think of my newsletter as I'm sending out an episode, let's say, because that's usually what prompts a newsletter for me. And so I'm sending out an episode and I'm like, listen to the episode here. And I feel like I'm asking them to do something for me. But the whole reason I created the episode was not just for funsies for me. I mean, I enjoy talking with you right now and this is a wonderful conversation and I am getting a little bit of coaching out of it. But if this conversation was just for me, then I could just schedule conversations with people and not record them and not publish them and not edit them and not share them with other people. Like I'm obviously doing this so that other people can hear what you have to say and get some insights. And so why do I feel like they're doing me a favor by listening when here's this great thing and here's all of these cool things that Nikki has to say?
Yeah. So you're making it less about you.
Yeah.
Right. It's not about you and how great your podcast is. It's about what that person can get out of your podcast, which they can get a lot out of it. And so you're taking the focus off of, can you do me a favor and listen to my podcast?
It's ridiculous.
Right? Because that's not how people feel. That's definitely not how I have felt listening to your episodes. And so then you put it on them. And if you're talking about sending out a newsletter about this particular episode or whatever, then you're giving the content in a way of like, how is this benefiting them by listening to it? What are they getting and gleaning from this? Maybe it's this in particular episode, or maybe you're sending out 3 at once or whatever. And so what's the value for them to listen?
Okay, I'm going to break the wall here on my podcast, and I'm going to speak directly to my audience, which I never do in the middle of an interview. I'm always just talking to the person I'm interviewing.
The rules.
I am going to do that right now, and I'm going to say, if you are listening to this episode right now in this moment, hold me accountable for sending you emails because I need to get over this resistance because just the shift that we just talked about. So that's all. Okay.
Great. Love it. Back on. Break the rules. Mix things up.
Exactly. So as you've been working with all these different women and entrepreneurs, and you've been building your own business and creating all these different opportunities for women to connect, are there any risks that you've taken that you feel like either A, really, really worked out in unexpected ways, but were terrifying at the time, or B, any risks that you've taken that crashed and burned, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I mean, I could speak to both, definitely. So the risk that I took that worked out wonderfully with this retreat that I was talking about that I'm really excited about. So it was a lot of money to put down, I think like $4,000 for the space. And no one, it's not like we did like pre-orders or anything like that. So that was just straight coming out of my pocket, and hadn't really talked about it, didn't like even create a buzz about it, but I just kind of knew my audience and I knew my clientele that this was a space that they would want to be in. But, it's still a lot of money. And I'd never thrown together a retreat or an event like this before, like totally out of my wheelhouse as far as the size of it. And we sold out like way before we had like a goal to sell out in August, and we put it online at the end of April, and we sold out in 2 weeks. And so that was pleasantly surprising. So yeah, that was a risk that I took that definitely paid off, and I've been able to make some really wonderful connections through it, and it's had some headaches with it too, but overall it's been like really, really rewarding. And I guess I shouldn't really, maybe I'm speaking a little prematurely because the event still hasn't happened yet. So it may be terrible, but I don't think so. I think it'll be great. But a risk that I took, well, I don't think I've taken too huge of risk that have bombed. I think I've been wanting to roll out these e-courses, and I've invested a lot of time and effort with it, and I haven't had the reaction to it that I've wanted to. And then I think I just need to like put more effort into it than I have. But yeah, I think that's maybe one risk, just the time and the effort to put into something, and then you launch it and then it's like, oh, like the numbers aren't coming in like you thought.
Yeah, on the surface, that feels like a small risk because it's like, oh, okay, you created this thing and the numbers aren't there. There hasn't been enough interest. But all I really invested was, time. But time is huge.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of things that I've put time and effort and passion and energy into creating, and then it's just like crickets and it just doesn't work. And I think that's just part of being an entrepreneur, and that's part of creating something out of nothing and extending an invitation. It's like you can have a party with 100 people there, and then you can have a party where it's like, where is everyone? You just don't always know. But your time is is important. And I think that's definitely something that I've wrestled with. I used to just create stuff and cross my fingers and hope for the best, and I wouldn't give it that much thought. But after so many little failures or so many things that fall flat or don't pan out, then you do sort of start to second guess, oh, I don't really know if I want to take the time to create this thing, because then what if I put in all this time that, you know, and then it doesn't pan out. So I think that's totally valid.
Yeah, but it's so great too, though. The risk is always great because you would never know unless you took it. You would never know. And so just in and of itself of taking the risk, you're solving a problem and you're learning something. I read this book, Rework. Have you heard of it? Mm-mm. It's the guys from 37 Signals. I'm writing a big blog post about it, and I give it a 3.5 stars, but I wouldn't really recommend it to anyone. But so there's this thing in Silicon Valley where people are like, oh, you know, failure is good, you know, and both the 37 Signal guys are like, failure is terrible. You do not want to fail. And it's like, what are you talking about? Everyone fails. And then in the Rework book, then later on, the guys were like, quitting is okay. Like, there's sometimes where you just have to quit something. So what's the difference between failing at something and quitting something, you know, because it's on your own turn? I don't know. Anyway, I guess I am in the camp that failure is okay, and that you learn so much from failure, and you learn how to pivot and what to do and what not to do and what resonates and what doesn't. And you would never know that unless you actually took the risk to do it.
Mm-hmm. So for someone who is about to start off on a new path or to change things up in what they're doing creatively or professionally or in their life, if you could give any piece of advice or words of wisdom to that person, what would it be?
Yeah, just do it. Just try it. Just go for it. So I love Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic, and she talks about following your curiosity. And I just think that that's so beautiful. I think we have a lot of pressure on our culture of follow your passion and follow your dreams. And a lot of people don't have passions and dreams. That's a tall order to have a passion of wanting to be a marine biologist before you even know what that entails, right? And so I think following your curiosity just takes the pressure off and allows you to just do it for the sake of doing it because you're interested in it, because you have a slight thought about it and you have a slight liking towards it. You know, just try it and see where it goes. And it may take you somewhere and it may not, but you'll never know unless you just follow that little inkling of desire.
That was Nikki Ricks of Gab Lab, and all of Nikki's contact information, social media links, and more can be found at thecreativeimposter.com/051. Right now, Nikki's offering an e-course that you should check out if you are ready to take your wild vision and make it a practical reality. It's called Crafting Your Creative Business Plan and is the #1 resource that Nikki is offering to help anyone who is feeling like a creative imposter. I hope you enjoyed listening to that conversation as much as I loved having it, and I encourage you to reach out to Nikki. She's fantastic. As you know, this month I am practicing embracing the title of podcasting coach. And right now I have a few, well, really like 2 coaching spots available for the winter holiday season. If you are thinking of launching your own podcast for 2018, the deadlines to get those submitted to Apple Podcasts for early 2018 release are coming up quickly, and I can help you get there. Visit podcastenvy.com to learn more, and there's a link there for you to reach out and connect with me, and we can set up a consultation. Whether you're thinking about launching your podcast or you've already started and you're realizing that you're going to need some support, I've got what you need. Don't worry. Also, we are getting super close to launching season 2 of the Power Your Story podcast, produced by high school students at Ray Graham Training Center through a program with After School Matters in Chicago. My high school student producers are currently taking your questions to answer on the show, so you can get featured by recording a short 90 seconds or less piece of audio You can even record it on your phone and send it over to me. Or you can just visit The Creative Imposter and click the contact page, send me a message, and let me know what your question is, or hit me up on Facebook, whatever works. And if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and check out Power Your Story Season 1 on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, or Stitcher Radio, and hit subscribe so that you will be the first to know when Season 2 drops. Did you know that you can get in on the whole podcasting thing even without launching your own show? Yep. I've got 4 other ways that you can expand your reach with podcasting that do not involve launching your own show, and you can find out about them at thecreativeimposter.com/magic with a free download of an audio training and PDF called 5 Ways to Expand Your Reach with Podcasting. Available for a limited time only, so check it out. This episode was mixed by Edwin Ruiz of Mondo Machine. Our theme music is by Jovia Armstrong. Oh, and hey, are you a musician? Would you like to have your music featured on a podcast? I'm getting ready to launch a brand new podcast about the craft of podcasting in January of 2018, and I need theme music. I'm not really even totally sure what genre I want. Something bluesy, something jazzy, something folky, something indie. I don't know. Surprise me. Reach out to me. Let me know what you got. I'm curious. In any case, I thank you so much for listening. And this week, I'd like to challenge you to take a risk, solve a problem, and learn something